The machine exploded at 317 flinging me into a century that reeked of soot, blood, and screaming. I hit the ground hard, cobbled stone smashing into my shoulder, knocking the breath from my lungs. Sparks danced across my vision. My lab coat was smoking. I blinked, dazed, trying to process the impossible readings I'd seen just before the blast. The temporal stabilizer had shorted out, overloaded by a fluctuation I hadn't predicted. The temporal core, where was it? I rolled onto my knees, coughing, tasting copper. The alley around me was tight and damp, flanked by buildings taller than they had any right to be for the 19th century. Brick walls oozed something tar-like. Steam hissed from brass pipes overhead. Rain misted down, thick and chemical. A strange electric hum underscored the silence. Not quite historical. Not quite right. My hands trembled as I checked the device clamped around my left wrist, charred. The interface was dead, blackened and cracked, its nanofibers twitching like burnt nerves. I looked up at the alley's end and saw movement, figures. Their footsteps echoed, too many, too fast. I stood and stumbled forward, limping toward the flickering lamplight beyond the alley. But when I emerged, the street wasn't a sanctuary. A crowd had gathered. At least 20 people, clothed in a mix of Victorian fashion and strange augmentations, copper shoulder plates, monocles with turning gears, top hats hiding antennae. They stared at me as if I were a beast escaped from the underground. One woman gasped and crossed herself. There, a man shouted, pointing with a gauntlet crackling blue. The rift spawn. Someone else raised a rifle that whined like a dying insect. Another primed a coil rod that shimmered with static. I raised my hands instinctively. Wait, please, I'm not. Too late. The mob surged forward. I turned to run, heart jackhammering, legs barely steady. I ducked into the alley again, only to find it closing in. The pipes overhead hissed louder. From behind, bootsteps thundered. The first rifle crack echoed off the bricks, sending a burst of sparks overhead. Heat singed the back of my neck. A hand shot out from the shadows and seized my wrist. I jerked, but it was too late. I was yanked sideways, through what looked like a brick wall, but shimmered faintly as I passed through, like glass touched by rippling water. I tumbled onto polished wood. The wall sealed behind me with a sigh. For a moment, I just lay there, breathless, chest heaving. The space around me was impossibly silent. Warm. I sat up. A fireplace crackled nearby, casting long shadows across an opulent parlor. The room smelled of dust, roses, and something metallic. Velvet drapes hung thick across the windows. Every surface was dark with an intricate brass trim. A pendulum clock ticked on the mantel, the sound amplified by the silence. Everything felt suspended in time. Then I saw her. She stood across the room, half draped in shadows, her eyes catching the firelight, deep, impossible red. She was tall, taller than me by several inches, and draped in a gown of dark green that shimmered like wet leaves in moonlight. Her hair was jet black and coiled over one shoulder. Her skin was porcelain, and her presence immediate, unearthly. There was an elegance to her posture, arms loosely folded, one gloved hand resting on the hilt of a thin silver cane. "You're early," she said softly, her voice a blend of silk and steel. I stared at her, trying to make sense of the room, the hidden passage, her words. What are you?" I asked, and then corrected myself. "I mean, thank you for saving me." Her gaze didn't soften. "You don't belong here. Not yet. The fracture point is still forming." "What the hell are you talking about?" She stepped forward, slowly. I flinched as the firelight played across her features, beautiful, sculpted, but devoid of warmth. Her expression was blank. Not cold, not cruel, just untouched. Like no emotion had touched her in a very long time. "I know your name," she said. "Dr. Adrian Vance, quantum chronologist, University of Europa 7. I froze. "How do you know that? You brought something with you. A key." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "Where is it?" "The temporal core." "I don't know," I said, glancing down at my charred sleeve. "It detached during the jump. If it survived, it's still out there. Then we must find it before they do." I blinked. "They?" She stepped past me to a massive bookshelf, pressing her palm to a false panel. It slid open with a hiss, revealing a wall covered in maps and diagrams, some drawn in ink, others pulsing faintly with holographic overlays. Time fractals, divergence loops, chronal pressure readings. They are called the Order of Stillness. Temporal enforcers. They monitor 4 violations. You, Adrian, are a violation. I stared. This is impossible." She turned back to me. "You're a scientist. You knew it was possible. You just didn't know it had consequences." I opened my mouth to protest but stopped. My ribs ached. My thoughts reeled. Somehow, she knew everything, the machine, the tech, even the theory I hadn't published yet. What is this place? I asked instead. My estate, she said, or what's left of it. Time loops tend to rot their cages. You're trapped here, cursed, she corrected, condemned to relive the same 100 years. I've seen this day thousands of times, but this is the first time you arrived early. Lightning flared outside the window, green, crackling with distortion. The sky pulsed like an open wound. I took a shaky breath. If we find the core, if I fix the machine, I can take us both out of here. Her eyes flinched, just slightly. It's not that simple. Why? Because breaking the loop means changing the one event that anchors it. She stepped closer, until I could see the faint silver vein at her temple, and that event is my death. We stood in silence. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance, the mob was still searching. I don't even know your name, I said quietly. She looked at me for a long moment. Lady Seraphine Eloan, she replied. Vampire, noble, prisoner of time. And then, more softly, and you're my last hope. You expect me to trust a vampire? I said, my voice low, uncertain. You pulled me through a wall, told me I'm being hunted by time cops, and now you say you're cursed to die on repeat? Seraphine didn't blink. You're not dead yet. That should count for something. Her gaze flicked toward the parlor's antique door as faint footsteps echoed from the alley. The mob hadn't given up. Their murmur was distant but growing. A mechanical whir cut through the air, followed by a brief pulse of light against the windows, someone scanning the street. They were using tech I didn't expect for this era. My arrival had clearly shaken more than just the timeline. I don't understand any of this, I muttered, half to myself. How could this century have fusion rifles and augmented mobs? You oversimplify, Seraphine said, turning back toward her hidden console. This isn't your 1800s. It's a broken echo, a shadow century. A distorted timeline bled through from other jumps. Every loop compounds the error. I followed her warily. But that means, you've been interacting with time travelers before me? Not many, she replied. The Order erases most of them before they breach local continuity. But once in a while, someone slips through, a chrononaut, a runaway AI core, a corporate saboteur. And now, you. Then why save me? She paused, studying me. Because you're different. Your machine wasn't built to pierce time, it was designed to listen to it. You came here by accident, but your signal registered across hundreds of iterations. This loop reacted, shifted, like it was waiting for you. That doesn't make sense, I said, though part of me knew it did. The Takoyan feedback array I built into the prototype hadn't just been a sensor. It had started pinging back responses, data packets with no source. Seraphine stepped closer. I noticed the way her fingers curled as if holding back tremors. She wasn't afraid of me, but she was holding something back. What are you not telling me? I asked. I've seen your face before, she said quietly, but never like this. Never so soon. In other loops, you arrive later. Sometimes too late. My mouth went dry. What happens in those loops? I die, she said, and turned away, and the world follows. Before I could respond, the room pulsed, everything stretched outward, like the walls themselves exhaled. A second later, the candle flames flickered blue, then green. I staggered back. What the hell? Chronal tremor, she said, means they've activated a sweep. They are bringing in an observer. Observer? They don't speak. They don't need to. They exist outside sequence. If it sees you, it'll mark you. Then the timeline eats you. Eats me. Yes. A beat of silence passed between us. Well, that's just great, I said flatly. The bookshelf slid back into place with a click as she sealed the secret room. We need to leave. Now. But you said, this was your estate. If you've been stuck reliving this century, don't you know it better than them? Her crimson eyes narrowed. Yes, that's exactly why I know not to trust it. She reached beneath her mantle and drew something from her belt, a collapsible blade, sleek and silver, etched with runes I didn't recognize. She handed it to me. Wait, I said. You want me to fight an extra-dimensional time cult with a knife? She leaned in. It's a chronodagger. It disrupts short-range harmonics and punctures false continuity. Think of it as cutting lies. Charming. You won't survive long, but it may buy you time. I took the dagger, feeling its eerie hum against my palm. It was heavier than I expected. Real. Sharp. We moved through the estate quickly. Corridors stretched longer than they should. Doors opened to staircases that twisted the wrong way. Gravity shifted in small pulses. The house wasn't just old. It was decaying from the inside, worn by too many resets. Seraphine moved like she'd memorized every fault line. How long have you been stuck here? I asked as we descended into a passage that looked like a collapsed wine cellar. 212 loops, she answered without looking back. Give or take. And how long is each loop? She hesitated. 97 years. I almost stopped walking. That's roughly 20,000 years, from my perspective, she finished. Yes. I said nothing for a long time. A sudden noise, like fabric tearing underwater, ripped through the air above us. Seraphine shoved me against the wall and hissed, "Don't breathe." I froze. A ripple of light slid through the bricks, a prism of colors that didn't belong in any spectrum. It hovered for a moment, then passed on. When it was gone, I exhaled shakily. Was that? Yes. We pressed forward. The passage twisted until it opened into an underground train station. The tracks were covered in dust, but the engines, massive, brass-bodied serpents, were pristine. Time hadn't touched them. Or maybe it had touched them too much, and now they were trapped like Seraphine. She led me onto the platform, where a console blinked faintly on a stone pillar. She placed her hand against it, letting it read her biometrics. "I don't understand," I said. "Why does any of this still work?" "Because we're still inside the loop. The machine remembers everything. It always has." A klaxon groaned overhead as the rail gate opened. A sleek pod, shaped like a harpoon bullet and wrapped in etched metal, rolled into place. She motioned for me to enter. "This will take us to the edge," she said, "where the loop resets, where the seams are weakest." "And what happens when we get there?" Seraphine looked at me, really looked. For the first time, her face cracked with something like emotion. Weariness, hope, fear. "You tell me," she whispered. "That's where you died the last time." Before I could speak, the ground trembled. The ceiling groaned. A blue slit opened in the air behind her, and a shape stepped through. It didn't walk, it arrived. Like it had always been there. Its form shimmered, a humanoid figure draped in time like a cloak, face hidden beneath a fractured mask of glass and steel. Its eyes burned with the same pale blue as collapsing stars. Seraphine grabbed my arm and yanked me into the pod. "Go." The observer didn't move, but its gaze locked on mine. I felt my entire existence stagger. My memories quivered. For a moment, I wasn't sure I'd ever existed at all. Then the pod launched. The world blurred, brass, stone, stars, fire. Seraphine's voice cut through the silence inside. "He saw you. It's begun." I held the dagger tighter. Outside the pod, time screamed. The pod slammed to a halt with a shriek of breaking magnetic pressure, throwing sparks across the curved glass. My head snapped forward, barely cushioned by the harness. Seraphine was already moving, unclipping herself, drawing her dagger again, eyes scanning the dark as if she knew what was waiting. We were in a station, but it didn't match the one we'd left. This place was older, abandoned. The walls were layered with soot and metal rot. Strange symbols pulsed faintly along the ceiling, some broken, some changing before my eyes. Nothing stable. Even the air shimmered with a false heat, like the environment couldn't remember what decade it belonged to. I climbed out after her. "Where are we?" "One of the bleed zones," she said, not slowing down. "Edges of the loop. Time here is thinner, fragile. Which means they won't follow us directly. Not yet. Too dangerous even for them." The walkway ahead split in two. One tunnel curved downward. Its stairs partially collapsed, the other sloped into darkness, flooded ankle-deep with glowing water. She picked the latter without hesitation. I followed, holding my chronodagger like it meant something. But every time I looked at it, I wondered if this was all theater, some elaborate dream or breakdown back in my lab in 2247. Maybe I was still at the console, slumped over, brain fried from quantum overload. But then I looked at Seraphine, her damp curls stuck to her neck, her bare arms rippling with tension, those haunting crimson eyes gleaming even in pitch black, and I knew none of it was fabricated. No hallucination was this persistent, or this cruel. The corridor narrowed into a cylindrical chamber that pulsed faintly, like the heart of a machine slowly dying. Seraphine crouched, motioning me down as well. "We stay here," she whispered. "The observer can't reach this far in, but we won't be alone." That got my attention. Define not alone. There are remnants, echoes of broken loops, things that didn't survive their own time. Creatures? Sometimes just ideas that grew teeth. I opened my mouth to speak, but a sharp metal groan rippled through the chamber. Something moved in the corner, a flicker, barely visible, yet the sound was unmistakable. Wet, dragging limbs. Seraphine pressed a finger to her lips. I held my breath. A silhouette slid along the far wall, featureless and bloated, like a body melted and reformed without knowing where limbs were supposed to go. It twitched once, then again, sensing us. But it didn't approach. Instead, it let out a strange choking sigh and dissolved into mist, vanishing into the cracks in the floor. "Residual anomaly," Seraphine muttered. "Lucky. Some don't vanish. Why would anything live in this part of time?" She glanced at me. "Because they have nowhere else to go." We spent the next hour in silence. She leaned against the far wall, half guarded, half meditating. I sat with my back to the wall, dagger in my lap, eyes darting to every shadow. The silence between us wasn't exactly comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. Tension lingered, sure, but underneath it was something else, something I couldn't place. When I finally spoke, it was because I couldn't bear the weight of her stillness any longer. You said the timeline shifted for me. What does that mean? Seraphine looked at me for a long moment, then said, this century loops endlessly for me. I always begin the same way, cornered in the manor, mob hunting me, sky frozen above. But each time, something alters. A name spoken too soon, a clock running backward, a child vanishing between one blink and the next. And me? You're the only fixed variable I can't predict, the only constant that appears and disappears. Sometimes early, sometimes never. Sometimes you're already dying. And now, you're alive. Her voice softened. You asked why I saved you. I didn't, not really. The loop did. For the first time, it bent around your presence. That's never happened before. I stared at her, trying to imagine 200 years of repetition, seeing the same deaths, living the same betrayals, watching every road collapse into the same ruin present, and through it all, knowing, somewhere, a version of me appeared, briefly, then vanished. How do you not lose your mind? I asked. She let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. Who said I haven't? We sat in silence again. Eventually, she reached into her coat and pulled out a device, a disc-shaped relic covered in wires and glass shards. It looked like a child's attempt at building a clock from memory. She handed it to me. What is it? A trigger. When the loop collapses, I can use this to push part of myself forward, memory, mostly. It's how I've learned to adapt. But if you remember, why haven't you found a way out yet? She looked away. Because memory alone isn't enough. I need a catalyst. And you think that's me. I know it is. Before I could respond, a sharp ping rang through the air, echoing against the steel walls. Seraphine froze, eyes narrowing. They found us. Here? You said they wouldn't follow. Not the enforcers. Something worse. A shape was forming in the air above us, flickering blue and gold, like a flame trapped in water. It coalesced into a face. Mine. I staggered backward. What? It's your echo, she said, voice low. Your death from the last loop. It's bleeding through. The observer must have touched you hard enough to splinter the past. My own face stared at me, twisted and pale, lips moving silently. I couldn't look away. It mouthed a word I didn't recognize, then shattered into fragments of light. Seraphine moved beside me. They'll be coming soon. This place isn't safe anymore. Where do we go? Up, to the spire, where it all began. And what happens there? She met my gaze. Everything. We climbed through twisting tunnels lit by broken machines and flickering lights. No longer a chase, but an escalation. The loop was folding in on itself. Time was starting to notice us. And I could feel something else, too. Like I'd been here before. Like I died here before. I kept walking, beside a woman cursed to relive her own death. And somewhere deep in my bones, I knew we weren't alone. The sky split open above us like paper torn by unseen hands. We reached the surface just as the spire came into view, an obsidian tower that stretched into the clouds, encased in tangled metal like roots trying to strangle a god. It pulsed faintly, veins of red and blue light spiraling its height in irregular bursts. Around its base, the city smoldered under a dying sun, its streets swallowed by ivy-covered ruins and skytrams frozen mid-air, mid-century, mid-out. It was a graveyard of abandoned timelines. Seraphine stood on the crumbling ledge beside me, her coat fluttering, her face unreadable. This is where I was born, she said quietly, or at least, the version of me that remembers. I didn't speak. My hand gripped the chronodagger tighter than necessary. The air felt thinner, not in pressure, but in time. The minutes didn't pass here. They unraveled. Each second stretched like melted glass, warping space as if the loop had grown tired of obeying its own laws. And then we heard it, a low hum, not mechanical, organic, resonating with the bones more than the ears. Seraphine's head snapped up. They are here. We turned. Two figures appeared at the edge of the avenue, a man and a woman, both clad in luminous armor that shimmered like oil on water. They moved without touching the ground, gliding rather than walking. Their faces were identical, smooth, expressionless, pale, like mannequins carved from starlight. Temporal enforcers. Stay behind me, Seraphine said, raising her blade. I'm not a child. Then don't die like one. The enforcers approached without urgency. No weapons drawn, only the air around them shifted, rippling like fabric dipped in boiling water. Time bent around their forms. The woman raised her hand. Subject 723. Her voice echoed through space and through me at once, coming from nowhere and inside my skull. Return to origin point. You are destabilizing an anchored chronology. Seraphine took a step forward. He's not a subject. He's free. You are not. The Enforcer's eyes shimmered blue. This is your 9,218th divergence. You have failed to return the anomaly. You are now classified as rogue. The male Enforcer pointed to the tower. You will be recompiled. Your loop will restart. The cycle endures. Like hell it does, I said, stepping forward. The woman tilted her head at me. You are the variable, the deviation, the wound. I'm a scientist. You were, she corrected. Now you are temporal rot, and rot must be excised. Seraphine moved before they did. A blur of silver and red, she lunged toward them with the precision of a memory rehearsed 1,000 times. Her blade clashed with invisible force, sparking in midair as energy shuddered through the ground. The female Enforcer responded instantly, vanishing and reappearing behind her. I was left facing the male. He extended his hand. A blast of concussive time energy, pure force wrapped in entropy, rushed toward me. I dove to the side just as the shockwave obliterated the stone where I stood. Dust and fragments rained down. My ribs screamed in protest, but I forced myself up. I wasn't a warrior, but I was not helpless. I reached into my coat and yanked free the stolen pulse drive, half broken, salvaged from Seraphine's memory bank. I activated it. Light fled around me in concentric rings, slowing the world just enough for me to lunge forward and slam the drive into the Enforcer's chest. The feedback was immediate. His body flickered, glitched, a crack formed in the air behind him. The Enforcer turned, staring at me, not angry, but curious, unexpected. Then Seraphine was beside me again, bleeding from her shoulder but alive, hurling a strange vial into the air. It shattered mid-flight, releasing a cloud of shifting red mist. The Enforcers backed away, not in fear, but calculation. They understood the cost. The woman spoke again, her voice fragmented. You delay inevitability. The cycle will consume you. I've lived in the belly of this cycle, Seraphine spat. I've carved its ribs from the inside. And she gestured to me, is the crack in your perfect glass. Every cycle has a flaw. He's mine. The Enforcers faded, like mist being reabsorbed into the broken sky. We collapsed behind a shattered tramcar, gasping. Blood trickled from Seraphine's side now. Her arm was trembling. She reached into her coat for a pressure stim and pressed it against the wound with a hiss. You all right? I asked. I will be. She leaned her head back. But they'll return with heavier tactics. They'll send the hounds next. Sounds bad. They are. I helped bandage her as best I could. She didn't flinch once. You fought them like you've done it before, I said. I have. Just not always in this body. That gave me pause. Meaning? Seraphine looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something ancient. Exhausted. Her voice was calm when she said, each time the loop resets, I don't always return the same way. Sometimes it's this form. Sometimes older. Sometimes less human. Memory transfers. Body, not always. That's, I searched for words, impossible. She smiled without humor. Welcome to the impossible. The sun was gone now, replaced by a swirling red aurora that streaked across the broken sky. Time was fraying. And still the spire loomed ahead. Why does it feel like it's pulling me? I asked, watching it pulse. Because it remembers you. I looked at her. Seraphine's voice was softer now. The spire isn't just a monument. It's the central wound. The point where time first broke. Where I was cursed. Where your future self tried to change everything. And failed. That hit like a punch. I've been here before. She nodded. In different loops, you always reach this point. Sometimes together. Sometimes alone. Sometimes already dead. Then why keep trying? Her gaze met mine. Because once, just once, you made it inside. And the cycle trembled. We stood. The path ahead twisted through glass gardens and frozen waterfalls, caught midfall, a sculpture of fractured time. Behind us, the wind howled with the voices of 1,000 failed loops. Ahead, the tower waited, and within it, answers, or the end. We walked forward anyway. The doors of the spire opened without a sound. No hinges creaked. No gust of air rushed to greet us. The massive archway simply parted like a blinking eye, revealing a chamber so vast that my breath caught. It was like stepping into a cathedral built by the universe itself. The walls shimmered with threads of light, some golden, some violet, some completely black. They pulsed softly, as if alive, as if remembering. The floor beneath our feet was a seamless mirror that didn't reflect us, but instead played fragmented scenes, ghost images of other timelines. I saw myself as an old man, as a corpse, as something not quite human. I saw Seraphine in a throne of blood, then screaming at the stars, then cradling something in her arms, a child, a body. I looked away. What is this place? I whispered. Seraphine's voice was low. The nexus, the fracture point of our reality. And we're just walking in? No, she touched her hand to the pulsalit wall. It's letting you in. Before I could ask what she meant, the chamber shifted. The wall stretched outward like lung tissue exhaling, revealing a hallway that hadn't been there before. It was narrow and crooked, like a spine carved into the building itself. We walked, side by side, the silence between us taut and trembling. Eventually, the corridor spilled into a smaller chamber. At the center hovered a crystalline sphere the size of a human heart. It rotated slowly, emitting a pulse that matched my own heartbeat. Seraphine tensed. That's it. What is it? The Chronicle. She took a shaky breath. The first time engine, created by your future self, or maybe your past. I don't even know anymore. Every loop begins and ends with that core. I approached it. As I got closer, I could see fragments within it, shards of memory, like panes of broken stained glass. I saw flashes of cities I'd never visited, of Seraphine smiling in sunlight, of a child holding a glowing compass. I reached out to touch it. Seraphine grabbed my wrist. Don't. But, if you touch it now, without remembering, it could kill you. Or worse, split you into versions we can't fix. I need to remember, I said. We can't keep fighting blind. Seraphine stepped back. Her voice was trembling now, barely above a whisper. You do remember. You just don't know it yet. I turned to her. What aren't you telling me? Her face cracked. Not physically, but something in her expression folded in on itself. The mask slipped. In one of the early loops, she said slowly, you weren't just a scientist. You were the architect. You created the time drive not to explore, but to find me. I stared. Why? Because in a version of time long gone, I was the one who broke it. I didn't mean to, but, her voice faltered. I tried to go back, to undo something, to save someone. I ruptured the fabric. You found me, helped contain the collapse. You fell in love with me, and I with you. We promised to fix it, together. My heart thudded. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because you asked me not to. Her eyes were shimmering now. Every time the loop restarted, you'd leave one message for your next version. Don't tell me. Let me choose her again. I felt like the world was tilting beneath my feet. I staggered backward, gripping the edge of a pillar. I don't remember any of it. You will, she said, barely breathing. Because this is the part where it always happens. Where the Chronicle begins unlocking what you buried. As if on cue, the core pulsed. Pain lanced through my skull. My knees hit the floor. Memories, not my own, and yet mine, flooded me. Holding Seraphine's hand on a mountaintop as the stars blinked out. Fleeing from collapsing cities. Sitting beneath a shattered moon, promising to burn the loop to the ground. Kissing her in the rain of a timeline we couldn't save. Watching her die again and again and again. Then, a different memory, one I didn't recognize. Seraphine standing over the Chronicle, whispering to it, and resetting the loop herself. I gasped, recoiling from the sphere. You triggered the loop? Seraphine froze. You said it was the enforcers, that the timeline broke from outside interference. I lied, she said, her voice hollow. Why? I demanded. Why would you do this? Because you died. The chamber was silent for a long time. You died, and I couldn't. She looked at me, tears finally breaking through. I couldn't live without you. I made the choice. I reset the loop. I tried to fix it, but it never worked the same way twice. And every time I tried to change less, just enough to keep you alive. I couldn't breathe. You cursed yourself, I said, realization dawning. You didn't inherit the loop. You chose it. I did. And me? My voice cracked. Am I even real anymore? Or just another version you sculpted into the one you wanted? She flinched like I'd slapped her. No, you are you. That's why I kept choosing. Because every time, you chose me back. I staggered toward the Chronicle. I have to end it. No, she said sharply, stepping between me and the sphere. Not like this. If you shatter it now, all timelines collapse. There'll be no version left of us, or anyone. Then what do we do? She reached into her coat and drew out a small device, my original time drive, cracked and sparking. We go to the first fracture, she said. The moment before either of us tampered with time. We risk one final jump. And if we fail? She smiled sadly. Then we fail together. I looked into her eyes, no longer just the eyes of a vampire cursed to eternity, but a woman who loved too deeply, too desperately. I took her hand. The Chronicle pulsed again, and this time, I felt it open, not a door, but a scar peeling wider. We jumped. The world was burning as we fell through it. Not with flame, but with time, golden, blistering, endless time, folding over itself like molten glass. Memory screamed past us in streaks of light and shadow, cities unborn, faces forgotten, wars reversed, stars blinking in and out like shattered Morse code. I clung to Seraphine's hand, the only constant in the chaos, her grip iron-tight even as our bodies spun through the vortex. Then, silence. Not the absence of sound, but the silence of arrival, of something real. We landed with a sickening jolt, not on a floor or ground but a surface that gave beneath our weight like wet parchment. I coughed, trying to orient myself. The air smelled like rain on copper, fresh and strangely nostalgic. Seraphine was already standing. This place, it wasn't a city, it was a memory. Endless forests surrounded us, lit by violet skies and silver leaves. Trees shimmered with colors I couldn't name. A child's laugh echoed faintly somewhere far away, layered with the rustling sound of forgotten lullabies. The time drive pulsed in Seraphine's palm, then cracked down the middle with a final hiss. I think that was our last jump, she said. Where are we? The moment before the fracture. Your first invention. The timer drive's prototype is about to be tested in a lab just beneath us. I looked down. Beneath the translucent floor, like a pool of glass, a lab came into focus. Sterile. Bright. I saw myself, younger, excited, no beard yet, no scars, talking animatedly to a group of colleagues. You said I made this to find you, I murmured. But here I'm just, naive, ambitious. Still you, Seraphine said. I studied the expression on my younger face, so hopeful, so ignorant of what was coming. I don't want to be him again. You won't be. She stepped closer. He didn't have me. For a moment, we stood in silence. The fractured world around us swayed with residual energy. Every second we stayed here risked contamination. But neither of us moved. I hated you, I said suddenly. Back in the Nexus, for not telling me. I know, but I think I hated myself more. For trusting a version of reality that wasn't whole. I never wanted to manipulate you. I just didn't want to push you into loving me again. I wanted it to be real, each time. Was it? She didn't answer right away. She stepped forward, until we were inches apart. You're a man of logic, she said, but you've always been ruled by heart. I've seen it. In every loop, you'd save strangers, risk paradoxes, defy time itself. And you kept coming back to me. I didn't even know who you were. But some part of you did. She reached up and gently touched my temple. Because I didn't just bind you to the loop. I bound myself to you. Bloodbond. Is that why I kept seeing you in dreams before this began? She nodded. It wasn't just memory, it was tethering. A mark only you could carry. I looked at her again. Not as the enigmatic vampire who'd dragged me through centuries of fractured history, but as someone who'd willingly cursed herself to hell over and over, just to keep me alive. I don't know if I love you, I said honestly. Not yet, but I think I could. Seraphine smiled faintly. It's enough. We sat beneath one of the silver-leaf trees. Time here moved strangely, slower, or maybe just less frantic. She leaned back against the bark, her long coat pooling around her like a shadow. Her eyes were softer now, the centuries of sharpness dulled just a little. I used to fear stillness, she admitted, because every time I paused, the weight of it all came crashing back. But right now, it's peaceful. She turned to me. What will you do, if this works? If we stop the loop? I don't know. Start over. Live slowly. Maybe teach again. Maybe stay near you. She blinked once, as if caught off guard by the tenderness. I never wanted forever, she said quietly. I just wanted a day that wasn't borrowed. You might finally get it. A low hum started beneath our feet. I glanced down below us. The young version of me activated the prototype. The same pulse I remembered from every jump echoed through the memory lab, igniting the engine that would tear open time. And then, I saw her. Not Seraphine beside me, but her, a past version, emerging from the shadows in the lab below, just as the core activated. Young, radiant, wearing a silver cloak, eyes fierce and determined. She was too early. Her presence would cause the core to fracture improperly. That was the real origin of the loop. Seraphine beside me saw it too. I don't remember doing that, she whispered. It wasn't you, I said. It's another you. One who never broke out. A fragment. A shadow loop, she murmured, acting on old instincts. If we let her interfere, the loop would restart again. All of this would reset. I stood. I can't let her do it. But if you go down there, I'll talk to her. Or stop her, if I have to. I turned back to Seraphine. Do you trust me? She gave me a slow, solemn nod. Always. And for the first time in what felt like lifetimes, I believed her. The lab was colder than I remembered. Every step echoed. I moved through the sterile hallway beneath the forest memory above, passing ghost images of my past, scientists huddled over terminals, screens alive with data, that telltale hum of the temporal core warming up. The lights flickered, as if time itself was unsure of which moment to commit to. Somewhere nearby, the loop version of Seraphine moved like a haunting. Her footsteps never echoed. She was a shadow of a shadow, born of an error, doomed to act out the same fatal instinct. I found her near the core. She was watching the younger me from behind a partition, her red eyes locked on his every move. Her skin shimmered faintly with leftover chronoenergy, and though she looked like the Seraphine I knew, something about her was wrong. Still, lifeless. "Stop," I said. She didn't turn. "You're not her." "Not anymore." Her head tilted a few degrees. A slow, mechanical motion. Then, she spoke. "You were supposed to be gone by now. Burned out in the rift or lost in the Pale Realms. Why are you still here?" "I learned to survive," I said. "She taught me." "She?" The shadow's voice echoed strangely in the space, duplicating across walls. "You mean me?" "No," I said, stepping forward. "Not you. The real one. The one who broke the cycle, who chose to live outside of it. She's up there, right now, ready to let this loop die. You don't have to keep doing this." The shadow turned to face me. Her expression was blank, mouth set in a neutral line. "You don't understand," she said. "This loop must continue. Otherwise, she dies. And you forget, again and again. That's not true. It's the loop that kills her, that kills us." The shadow blinked slowly, like a machine parsing a new command. "I've watched you die in 23 timelines," she said. "Burned, dismembered, eaten by time wraiths. You are fragile. She cannot afford to forget you. She doesn't have to. Not anymore. We can build something real." A faint flicker passed through the shadow's form. "A glitch. I am the safeguard," she said, more to herself than to me. "I was made to protect the bond." "You were made in error," I said softly. "That broke something." Her eyes widened, and for a split second, her face cracked, literally. A thin fracture split across her cheek, glowing with blue-white light. Temporal instability. She was coming apart. I reached for her instinctively. "Don't," she warned, backing away. "If I break near the core, I could corrupt this entire moment." "Then shut it down," I begged. "Let yourself fade. It's okay. You've done enough." She looked at me, no, through me, for a long time. The lab around us hummed louder. The younger me was still oblivious, powering up the device, preparing for the first test. Everything was converging again. The loop was seconds from sealing. The shadow's voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you love her?" "Yes," I said. "Not out of fate, out of choice." She nodded once. Then she walked toward the core. "No," I shouted, thinking she was going to trigger it again, but instead, she placed a single hand on the main conduit, and whispered something I couldn't hear. A pulse of gold light exploded outward. The shadow disintegrated. No scream, just a shimmer, and then nothing. The core flickered. The hum quieted. The loop had broken. I raced back up through the lab access ladder to the surface. The forest was gone. Seraphine lay sprawled in a blackened crater, unconscious. The memoryplane had collapsed. We were somewhere new now, real, but I didn't yet know where. Smoke curled from the ruined time drive. I fell to my knees beside her and shook her gently. "Seraphine, wake up." "Nothing. Come on," I murmured. "You don't get to disappear now. Not after everything. I made a choice. You said that mattered." Still nothing. A gust of wind kicked up ash around us. The sky above was dark red. We were somewhere in between, an edge realm, where time hadn't reasserted itself fully. If she didn't wake soon, she might dissolve like the shadow did. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I kissed her. Not a dramatic, perfect kiss. Just raw and clumsy. A desperate thing, filled with terror and longing and the quiet hope that maybe love did matter in a universe held together by equations and ghosts. Her lips were cold. But then, a gasp. She bolted upright, hand flying to her chest like she'd been drowning and just broke the surface. "You're back," I whispered. She blinked, dazed. I felt everything. Even the version of me that died. I thought I was her. "You're not. You're you." She looked around, then at the ruined device, then at me. Her eyes shimmered, not with power, but with something painfully human. "We did it," she breathed. I nodded. And then, the sky tore open. A line of pure white light split the horizon, and from it descended something tall and faceless, metallic robes, a mask like a sundial, fingers like mercury. The Time Tribunal. Seraphine swore under her breath. "They found us." The loop was suppressing their detection. "What do we do?" "We run," she said, grabbing my hand. But it was too late. The enforcer raised a hand and time froze around us. Except, not entirely. I could move. So could Seraphine. We looked at each other in shock. Why aren't we frozen? I asked. Because we're out of sync, she said, realization dawning. They didn't account for a broken bond. The enforcer stepped forward, confused. It couldn't see us clearly, as if we were glitching out of its frame. I think we have one shot, she said. One last jump. But we have to make it together. No more separations. No more safety nets. I nodded. Then let's go. We turned and sprinted through the frozen world, dodging time-locked objects and fractured air. The ruined core still sputtered in her hand, leaking pulses. She rewired the fragments mid-run, her fingers moving like lightning. They'll follow, I said. They always do, she replied. But now we're not in a loop. We're in a story. And stories can end. Or begin, she said. She activated the jump, and we vanished, leaving behind nothing but a footprint in the ash and a single, whispered line of static. I love you in every version of time. Wind howled against a world that shouldn't exist. A sky of molten bronze stretched above us, broken by jagged arcs of lightning that left no thunder in their wake. The ground beneath our feet was dark glass, burned sun fused by centuries of celestial fire. Mountains floated in the air, their roots trailing into the void like smoke from forgotten gods. We had landed somewhere between timelines, in a realm untouched by cause or consequence. Seraphine called it the Fracture Expanse, a place only accessible to those unmoored from chronology. It was here, in the eye of temporal chaos, that we finally stopped running. She was silent for a long time. We stood at the edge of a cliff, watching storms drift sideways and backward across the horizon. My hand brushed against hers. She didn't move away. How long do we have? I asked. There's no such thing here, she said. It's not about how long. It's about how much. How much what? Faith, strength, regret. Every second we remain, the universe decides whether we're worth remembering. That quieted me. A floating monolith passed above us, inscribed with shifting GLYPHS that burned and vanished. Time here was like a storm, not a river, tangled, violent, poetic in its cruelty. Seraphine sat down on a ridge of glass. Her red cloak rippled in every direction at once, caught in too many winds. I sat beside her. I used to think love was impossible for someone like me, she said. You mean a vampire? I asked. She chuckled dryly. No, I mean someone cursed to relive her life endlessly. Someone who saw every possibility and still couldn't change anything. What does love mean when you can't even make a real choice? But you did, I said. You broke the loop. You chose to help me, to remember me. She looked over, her expression unreadable in the surreal light. You made me want to. I didn't know what to say to that. My throat felt tight. This place, for all its chaos, had stripped everything bare, no roles, no past, no duty, just two souls lost in time. She continued, voice soft. When I first saw you in 1842, I thought you were like all the others. Curious, clever, naive. But then you looked at me, not like I was a relic or a monster. You looked at me like I was possible. You were, I said. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with the faint echo of every version of herself she had left behind. Even the first time I killed you, part of me knew I'd remember it forever. And when I found you again, 2 centuries later, when your hair was silver and your hands trembled as you reached for the device you built, I realized I never forgot. I lowered my gaze. In some versions, I forgot you. I know, it wasn't your fault. But I hated the me that did, I said. I hated the versions of me that moved on, that left you behind. And I promised myself, I promised you, that if I ever got another chance, I wouldn't waste it. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I felt her relax for the first time since I met her. This is the only moment in all existence where we don't owe anything to the past or the future, she murmured. No hunters, no loops, no agendas. Then let's make it count, I said. We sat there for a while. Time bent around us, and we bent with it. Eventually, she asked, do you ever want to go back to 2247? She nodded. I thought about the sterile lab, the screens, the reports, the endless tests. I thought about the council who funded my research but never believed in its implications, about the way people looked through me rather than at me. No, I said, not if it means losing this. She exhaled, her breath misting briefly even though the air wasn't cold. Good, because I can't promise we'd ever make it back the same way. You think they are still chasing us? She nodded. The Tribunal isn't governed by emotion. They'll come. Not because they hate us, but because we represent possibility. That's dangerous to them. We'll fight. She smirked faintly. You're not much of a fighter. I am now, I said. She turned to face me, Her fingers grazed my temple, tracing a line down to my jaw. You've changed. I don't just mean the time energy in your blood or the way your cells vibrate at temporal frequency. I mean you. Your eyes are different. How? They believe in something. I took her hand. In you. In the distance, a low rumble cracked across the sky. The monoliths began to slow, their GLYPHS locking into place. Seraphine's grip tightened. They found us. I stood with her. Then we keep moving. She hesitated. No, not this time. What do you mean? Her eyes flashed with purpose. If we keep running, we stay on their terms. But if we send a signal, show them that even in a place without time, love can anchor meaning, we can change the rules. What kind of signal? She raised her hand. I have one last reservoir of chronoenergy, enough for a message, a memory broadcast, looping endlessly. If we anchor it here, in the expanse, it becomes part of the cosmic echo. And what message? She stepped close. That time didn't break us. That we chose each other. I swallowed. You'll lose it all again, won't you? She nodded. Probably, but not me, I said. I'll remember. I'll carry it forward. She smiled, tender, full, vulnerable. Then let's write the ending together. I helped her construct the anchor, a fusion of memory, blood, and energy, shaped like a crystal that pulsed with scenes from our journey, the first night in the alley, the kiss that brought her back, the shadow sacrifice. We embedded it in the glass cliff, and then we watched the sky light up. They came, 5 enforcers, stepping through folds of gold light, faceless and cold. I turned to her. Are you ready? No, she said, but I'm willing. And that was enough. She raised her hand. I stepped beside her, and we faced the tribunal together, not to win, but to be seen. Because even in a universe obsessed with order, there is power in choosing chaos for the sake of love. And we had never been more real. The tribunal's figures stood like statues carved from the void, their silhouettes trembling with paradox. 5 of them, each wearing a cloak of lightless entropy, and faces like shattered mirrors, every fragment reflecting versions of us that had never come to be. The sky above flickered in silent dread. Time held its breath. Seraphine stepped forward first, cloak billowing like ink in reverse. Her red eyes locked onto the leader of the 5. You don't belong here, she said. Neither threat nor plea, just a statement of fact. The kind that cracked mountains. The tribunal didn't speak with mouths. Their voices dropped directly into our minds, like cold water spilling down our spines. This convergence is unauthorized. The expanse must remain unaltered. You, Seraphine d'Alberic, are a known disruptor. You, Elias Ward, have broken 5 fixed points in your timeline. Stand down and dissolve. My pulse thudded in my ears, but I didn't step back. No, I said, not anymore. They turned slightly toward me. I felt the weight of centuries press into my skull. You are a child of linear time. You cannot comprehend what your actions have done. Then explain it, I snapped. Explain why preserving loops is more important than people. A silence. Then, loops are stability. Chaos is erosion. Love is irrelevance. I felt Seraphine tense beside me. They always say that, she whispered. Every loop, every tribunal. They erase love because it resists order. One of the enforcers lifted a hand. The sky split open like paper torn by lightning. Through it, I saw memories not mine, Seraphine's deaths, Seraphine's trials, me dying in her arms over and over, vanishing like vapor. Time undone, time remade. Do you see, she said to me quietly, voice strained. This is their power, not death, oblivion. They want to rewrite us out of existence. I turned away from the storm of images. Then let's give them something they can't erase. We stood at the anchor, the crystal pulsing with all we had shared, every kiss, every argument, every impossible choice. It burned brighter now, fed by our defiance. We could run again, I said. No, she answered. I'm done running. And I believed her. I took her hand and channeled everything I had into the anchor. My blood hummed, vibrating with temporal current. The serum I had injected months ago, prototype of a time-stabilizing field, flared alive within me. Our memory surged through it, fractal and furious. The enforcers began to move. Seraphine gritted her teeth. Buy me 10 seconds. Done. I stepped forward, breath catching, and raised the time slicer prototype I'd scavenged from a broken loop. The blade shimmered like liquid prism, unstable and untested. Elias, she began. Don't worry, I almost know how to use this. I lunged. The tribunal was fast, but not fast enough. I didn't aim to win, I aimed to distract. Every swing opened rips in space, loops spilling out like oil from a cracked bottle. I saw versions of me screaming, laughing, dying, winning. I pushed past all of them and charged into the lead enforcer, who met me with a wall of null time. Pain, Cold, white, I screamed, but I didn't fall. Behind me, I heard Seraphine chant the final words of the rite. They were not in any known language, but they were true. The crystal flared. A shockwave tore across the expanse. Not force, remembrance. Every loop she had endured, every death she had watched, every kiss we had shared, all of it fired like a beacon through the fracture expanse and beyond, across every age, every timeline. The message was clear. We lived. We chose. We mattered. The Tribunal froze. Their forms shimmered, glitching, cracking, shuddering. I crawled back to her, blood in my mouth, time leaking from the edges of my skin. We did it, I rasped. She caught me. Not yet. One of the enforcers surged forward, refusing entropy, determined to erase us. Seraphine stood and faced it. I tried to follow, but my legs refused. Let me. No, she said. You carried me far enough. She unleashed her final card. Not a weapon, not a spell, a memory of her as a child, alone, cold, human, of her first kill, her first regret, her first realization that eternity meant nothing without someone to remember it with her. She let the enforcer see her, all of her, and for a moment, that thing, a construct built by civilizations long dead, hesitated. It shattered, fell like snow. The rest began to unravel, slowly, like the universe forgiving itself. Seraphine fell to her knees. I crawled to her, cradled her head. You're okay, I lied. She smiled. No, I'm free. Light swallowed us, but it wasn't death. It was after. It was what comes next. And when I opened my eyes, we were standing in a greenhouse. Mid-23 road century. The sun filtered through golden glass. The sky was soft, real. A single rose bloomed in the corner, its petals white with red edges. Seraphine was beside me, breathing. Breathing. I touched her face. She blinked. Where are we? Home, I said. But I remember. I remember all of it. So do I. The loop was broken. The Tribunal was gone. And time, true time, was ours. She laughed once, freely, and then kissed me. Not because we were running. Not because we were afraid. But because we had earned it. And behind us, in the shadows of the greenhouse, the time anchor glowed faintly, eternal, unshaken. A monument to all the versions of us that refused to disappear. The greenhouse was alive with light and warmth, the filtered sun painting delicate patterns across the verdant leaves and glimmering glass. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the air was calm, the endless tension of fractured timelines finally eased. Seraphine stood beside me, her fingers intertwined with mine, a silent testament to battles fought and sacrifices made. I looked around, taking in the vibrant colors of the blooms, each one a quiet rebel lion against the gray of the past. The rose in the corner, its petals edged with the faintest blush of red, seemed to pulse softly with the memory of everything we had endured. It was a living symbol of resilience, fragile yet unyielding. Seraphine's eyes, once cold and distant, now held a light I hadn't seen before, a fragile hope mixed with weary relief. "It's real," she whispered, almost disbelieving. "Yes," I said, squeezing her hand gently. "We made it. We finally made it." The time anchor behind us pulsed with a steady glow, a beacon anchoring us to this moment, this reality. It was no longer a trap or a curse but a promise that our story wouldn't be erased by cruel loops or unyielding enforcers. We stepped forward, moving through the greenhouse's winding paths lined with exotic plants and machinery humming softly with steampunk elegance infused by the futuristic technology I'd brought from 2247. Every detail blended eras and possibilities, a symbol of the journey that had shaped us. Seraphine stopped by a fountain where water danced over intricate brass gears, droplets sparkling like stars in the filtered light. She traced a finger through the mist and looked back at me. "What happens now?" I smiled, feeling a rare warmth in my chest. "Now, we live. Without running, without hiding. We make our own time." She nodded, her lips curving into a smile that was both hesitant and full of promise. The weight of centuries still lingered in her posture, but it no longer defined her. She was free. I pulled her close, our breaths mingling. "I don't want to waste another moment." Her voice was soft, almost shy. "Me neither." As we kissed, the world around us shimmered, neither past nor future, but the vibrant pulse of now. Our bond was no longer a cycle doomed to repeat but a thread woven through time's vast tapestry, unbreakable and true. Suddenly, the air shifted. A faint hum grew beneath our feet, a gentle vibration that felt like a heartbeat syncing with ours. The tiny anchor's glow deepened, casting elongated shadows that danced alongside us. It was as if the universe itself was acknowledging our victory. But even in triumph, I knew the scars would remain, etched into our souls, reminders of the price we paid. Seraphine rested her head against my shoulder. Do you think they'll come back? The Tribunal? I answered. Maybe, but if they do, we'll face them together. Her fingers tightened around mine. Together, we walked toward the greenhouse doors, stepping into the soft glow of a future that was no longer predetermined. Outside, the city beyond was a blend of steam and neon, clockwork towers rising beside sleek spires of glass and steel. Life was pulsing in every direction, vibrant and unpredictable. I inhaled deeply, tasting the promise of endless possibilities. A voice whispered in my mind, not theirs, but ours, born from every loop, every lost moment, every fragile hope we'd carried. This is the time to live. As we stepped forward, the last flickers of fractured time dissolved behind us. The loops unraveled, and the endless cycle shattered into a million shimmering fragments, scattering like stardust on the wind. Seraphine looked up at me, eyes bright. What do we call this new beginning? I smiled, the weight of all I had learned settling like a quiet peace. We call it freedom. And as the sun rose higher, bathing us in light, I knew, whatever the future held, we would face it not as prisoners of time, but as its masters. Our story was no longer one of endless cycles, but of infinite tomorrows. Together, forever.